Hospitals, by their very nature, involve some pretty spooky stuff. They're filled with sick or dying people, and if there was gonna be a place in which spirits were stuck en masse, unable to pass on, then a hospital would certainly fit the bill perfectly. We've compiled this list of 5 scariest things caught inside hospitals, and hope you enjoy. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Wheelchair haunting. If this picture doesn't freak you out right off the bat, then it's definitely time to look a little closer. It shows a wheelchair at an unnamed hospital, which isn't really all that out of the ordinary for the most part. What sets this one apart from the rest is the figure that seems to be sitting motionless in that very same wheelchair. There are plenty of photos that end up with certain parts being developed out of focus, but it doesn't seem like this is one of those. Everything else in the photo's about as clear as it can be, but the figure, who resembles an older woman, is most definitely and creepily not. The shadowy figure, it's assumed to be the ghost of a patient who passed away at some point in the hospital, although without much of a backstory to run with, we can't possibly begin to identify her beyond a shadow of a doubt. She seems to be staring into space, not aware that anyone else is around or that her picture's being taken. Otherwise, she might have ended up vanishing without a trace, as many specters are wont to do when confronted. That gives us a unique insight into the paranormal, and we don't know what to make of it. We're not the biggest believers in hauntings, but are having a hard time trying to explain this image away in a scientific way that makes sense. It definitely seems like she's really there, and that she isn't just the result of a strange camera flare or blurred lens. The empty hallways just add to the scene, making it seem like we're currently looking at the sole occupant in a hospital filled with ghosts, although we're sure that's not the case, and this picture was just taken during a quiet period of time or in a wing that's not currently being used. What would make this even more scary would be for her to stare straight at the camera, although that faraway look, reminiscent of the famed 1,000-yard stare that soldiers have been known to adopt, is definitely unnerving to say the least. Whoever snapped this picture must have been seriously brave to stick around to ensure that they were able to get photographic evidence, and we don't think we would have been composed enough to do so. Running the other direction seems like it would be a solid bet at this point, but we're glad that they stuck around for our sake. It could also be that they were just taking a standard picture of an empty hallway and that they only noticed the figure in the wheelchair after the photo was developed. It's believed that many ghosts appear much more readily on film than they do to the naked eye, and if that's the case here, then taking another look at the photo after development would have made for one hell of a shock. Number 4. Quebec Hospital Livestream. This next photo doesn't capture anything paranormal or strange, but it's certainly creepy when you hear exactly where it came from. It turns out that the image is a still taken from a live stream that aired on a Russian website, and that the video was pulled directly from an actual hospital security camera that was hacked by an anonymous group of Russian hackers. While this image doesn't show anything totally untoward, it's creepy to be presented with actual evidence that hackers are able to tap into just about any device and download the entire stream wherever they like before uploading it on the internet for everyone to see. This is scary because it means that it's possible to be tracked by just about anyone with enough technical know-how and drive. Hospital gowns never really cover up much, and we're sure that more than a few of you have ended up having a wardrobe malfunction in them. If there are websites that air this footage non-stop 24/7, then it's entirely plausible that you've been ogled by complete strangers on the other side of the globe, simply by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Canadian police have taken this news very seriously and are still trying to figure out exactly how these hackers are able to access hospital security cameras around the world so easily. There hasn't been much news from the investigation yet, but it's still underway, so that's not too surprising. We really hope that they're able to put a stop to such eerie practices, because while we have nothing to hide, we'd be pretty terrified if this kind of thing happened to us. What's more is that hospital networks, given the kind of sensitive information that passes through or is stored on them every day, are probably more secure than ours, meaning that all of our devices are under similar threat. While we'd be worried about popping up on a hospital security cam, we'd be even more scared scared of people using the same techniques to watch us while we're going about our business at home, because that would be a serious breach of our privacy. While this particular hospital has protected itself now, there are countless more that don't even know their network has been compromised, with everything that goes on there being streamed on multiple shady websites. The kicker is that law enforcement on this side of the world really has no recourse when it comes to these sorts of things, with very little power to actually shut these sites down or find out exactly where they're operating from. Even more confusing is why this kind of thing happens at all, as we can't imagine why anyone would go out of their way to steal security cam footage for anything other than criminal activity. Number 3. Murderous nurse. Emilia Kovacheva was a nurse at Sofia Med Hospital in the Bulgarian capital of Sofia, and it seems that she let her temper get the better of her on multiple occasions, opting to take her anger out on the newborn babies that she was entrusted to care for. The video shows her trying to calm a child after it began crying at 2 a.m., which newborns are known to do. The kid really couldn't help itself, and when Kovacheva realized that other babies were being woken up by the noise, she decided she'd take matters into her own hands, but went way too far in doing so. Rather than trying to soothe the kid into being quiet, she began beating the baby as well as biting it repeatedly. We don't know why anyone would do such a horrifying thing, or why she thought that her actions would do anything other than make the baby cry harder, but we have to assume that she's just a terrible person who shouldn't have ever been allowed out in public. After this video surfaced, Kovacheva was arrested and charged with attempted murder of a child. Furthermore, the resulting investigation found that she had beaten more than one child, with at least 4 other babies being assaulted by the woman. She caused so much damage to the baby in this case that many people feared that the child wouldn't end up recovering from its ordeal, with plenty of experts claiming that they expected the baby to either end up dying from her wounds or, at the very least, suffer massive and permanent brain damage. Thankfully, these fears were unfounded and the baby was able to make a full recovery so far, although only time will tell if it'll end up suffering mentally or developmentally in the future. This recovery was said to only be due to emergency responders acting quickly, and they're sure that things would have been much worse if this video hadn't surfaced when it did. Mothers from all over Bulgaria joined together in protest, saying that Kovacheva should be jailed for life without possibility of parole. We agree with them completely, and have to admit that this story scares the living daylights out of us, as it could potentially happen anywhere if a nurse or other healthcare professional tasked with ensuring the safety and security of newborns should similarly snap, which is seriously disconcerting. That was a tough one to get through. Number 2. Ghostly apparition. If all the previous stories weren't enough to freak you out, this picture, which was uploaded anonymously, might just be enough to make you cower in fear. It shows what seems to be a spectral figure standing over a hospital bed, staring down at the person sleeping in it. Some people have claimed that this could be a spirit that just left their body, but others say that its stance suggests it's simply engaging in a good old-fashioned haunting. It's a good thing their victim was asleep at the time, as we're sure that one look at the ghost standing over them would be enough to induce a massive heart attack. We know we'd be scared to death if we ever saw something like this, and we're very happy that we've never had to put that scenario to the test. We feel that we should point out, however, that the room is pretty dark, and that this apparition could very easily just be a lens flare or have some other kind of reasonable explanation. Then again, the figure does look very much like a ghost, and we're sure it'll end up haunting our nightmares for quite some time to come. Hospital staff decided to upload the picture after coming across it in a bid to explain it away scientifically, but nobody has so far been able to ease their fears and come up with an explanation that doesn't involve a haunting from beyond the grave. Number 1. Demon visitation. The story behind this image is overwhelmingly strange, and we certainly hope that someone's simply pulling our leg or that we're just looking at some sort of optical illusion. The patient in this room had repeatedly complained to hospital staff that they were being haunted by an actual demon, usually when they were all by themselves and no other witnesses were around to confirm the story. Hospital staffers took this claim with a grain of salt, mostly because the patient was on some pretty serious medication at the time. They honestly thought that the demon sightings were just hallucinations and a mere side effect of their medication and painkillers. When the patient died, however, staff members were a little puzzled because it had occurred so suddenly and without warning. They suspected possibly foul play, but nothing prepared them for being presented with this image that seems to clearly show a demon dancing on the bed, proving that the patient had been correct in their assumptions of a haunting after all. This realization would have been hard to take, assuming that this wasn't just an elaborate hoax, and we bet that they'll end up taking taking any demon sightings a little more seriously from here on out. Alright, Top 5ers, we have something very exciting for you to see. Make sure to visit our other channel, The Brilliant. If you like what we have on Top 5's Finest, then we know you will love what we have there too. But be warned, the videos over on The Brilliant are extremely addicting to watch as well. There will be a link in the description to The Brilliant channel, so make sure to visit us now. Or you can go to our latest video popping up on screen right now. Come on, click it. You know you want to. Oh, and while you're here, subscribe also. Heard it gives you superpowers. Anyway, see you soon.